We've hit another crazy reflection point in college football. Nico, the 6'6" quarterback leading the Tennessee Volunteers, will be splitting from the team after it was reported that he was looking for more money on his NIL deal. Some people believe this shows that player money and empowerment is out of control. Some believe that this is what should happen due to the player's inability to make money in the NCAA for years. Others just feel unsure about the direction of the game. No matter how you feel, I'll bring you through my guide of how we can fix all these problems in college football and bring the game back to a stable place where all parties involved can feel satisfied again. The first big key of this guide here, players cannot, by any circumstance, no matter what agreement, what thing we go through in the forward, years, we cannot have players with the opportunity to make less money than they're making now. No matter what happens, players should not be barred of their financial opportunities. That's not what people want to see. They need to get their fair share of the pie, especially after years of collegiate control. So no matter what agreement comes in place, it shouldn't be that a player is going to cut back on what they're able to earn, or players are cutting back on what they're able to earn. It should only be really growing and looking forward to the future. Next thing we should have here in order to grow college football into really the next step, there's got to be a collective bargaining agreement. At this point, this is the minor league NFL. You got to start getting deals done to where you have a union for the player base of everyone in the FBS at least, and the FCS should really be involved too, but I think that could almost be a separate clause in the CBA, given that we're really talking about different levels here and probably different financial outcomes for that reason. You look at all the other big sports leagues, they have agreements between the teams and their players and the league owners. You really have to have this in college football, the way the money's gone and with the way the deals are breaking down. This would be a good way to put something in writing and basically get you out of the Wild West. There's no more boundaries in the area of the sport anymore. Nobody knows what's going to happen or what can happen. In fact, with the Tennessee quarterback situation, you had no idea that was going to really be a thing, like a guy holding out for several more $1 million, and you don't even know what's happening or who's in control. So a collective bargaining agreement, something that lays out the rules, lays out the agreement, lays out the labor that players, the labor structure players are going to work under, that would make a lot of sense. But the next big key here, in that CBA, the players should not be having a salary cap. That would be putting a bad limit on players when one is not needed. Nobody wants to put a limit on player earnings, and I get that the NFL and some other leagues have this in place, but keep in mind that Major League Baseball, that league doesn't have a salary cap, and it's often praised for having the best union of the 4 major American sports leagues. And that said, you might as well try your best to follow in their footsteps and not implement a salary cap, especially because Major League Baseball players have long been compensated all that. Well, you haven't even had compensation for most of the existence of college football, so it's a brand new thing. You might as well have at least some financial equity to make up for years past. Plus, that would be really weird. I think all teams in the NFL are at least rich enough to pay up to that salary cap. Even if you make the salary cap really big, it could kind of be weird for those small schools who not even going to get close to it, and just creates a weird competitive balance. So that could actually also be a problem. But either way, you don't want to see this implemented. Now, at the end of the day, we still do need to have some protections for the teams, the schools, the coaches, etc., because if it's too balanced to the players, well, that can be a problem. I think you see that in the NBA right now, to where they've really been lenient to the players, and they've kind of arguably taken a little bit of the advantage, to a degree, to where you have a lot of problems in the league now around how much freedom the players have or what the players are doing, etc. But look, you got to get some protection to the team. So I think the game has gotten pretty difficult to follow with all the movement. If you look at a lot of teams, they really can't stay together anymore. And I can appreciate this makes it very difficult for the coaches. I think you want to get a good balance here to where coaches can feel like they can run a program, but players can get freedom, specifically because you want the good coaches to stick around in the game. If they're feeling like it's too big of a hassle to run a college program, they'll jump ship. I think the way to get more commitment would be through the CBA, give guys decent base salaries so that they won't have as much incentive to jump schools for playing time, and the salary should go up each year and maybe increase based off awards and stuff. But think of this new scenario with this system. Let's say a player does well, makes a salary of $300,000 and gets good playing time and etc. A new team could offer him a total of $400,000 somewhere else, but with the current money for the guy at $300,000 and about to go up to, let's say, $350,000, the player could take a little less to stay in a good situation with the team they're familiar with and a coach that's going to give them good playing playing time. So something like that closes the gap between having no money to having massive NIL deal would be something that would be really good, I think, in order to keep players where they are and incentivize them to not move as much. Another part of this is some people would say maybe to protect the teams a little bit, you should put a limit to the transfer rule. But I just think that if you start limiting guys saying you can transfer 2 times in a couple of years, but you can't transfer a 3rd time, or you're going to have to sit a year or something, like whatever rules you want to implement, I just think you open yourself up to lawsuits and plenty of problems, especially with the earning potentials. People are going to say, you stopped me because of this stupid rule. You stopped me from potentially earning another $700,000 from my family. So you're going to I just see a lot of lawsuits and actions with that. I would first start by implementing the salary thing to see if that can help calm the transfer portal chaos. Next thing, can we change the date of the transfer portal, please? One of the most head-scratching conditions in college football is this awkward transfer portal date where things open in December. You just don't want to see people transferring at the tail end of the season. I get they have classes and stuff, and you're trying to align all the academic sides of things, and I think that's part of why the window opens when it does. But you can't tell me these universities can't make some exceptions to their academic guidelines and other things, and dates for the few people attached to the football team that get there late. It just always makes a player look bad because they have to do what's best for them, and then they leave the team early, and it also makes the system look clunky and unprofessional, and it shouldn't be like that for a multi-million-dollar, really billion-dollar sport like college football that is in the limelight every year, and it leads to more opt-outs and incomplete teams in the bowl games and playoffs, which isn't great for the competition either. It's just bad all the way around, and it feels like the easiest thing for the NCAA to fix right now that could help massively improve the sport. And rounding out this guide with one of the most important decisions, you have to name a league commissioner. You've got to get a consistent governing body as well. College football, they need somebody that speaks for the sport. Now, you have a few guys, when you have some guys that are arguably in that sphere in the media, voices like Nick Saban, or, you've got some guys like Josh Pate or whatever it is in the college media, or the coaches. I think Kirby Smart gets pretty big opinion space, and same with guys like Kenny Dillingham at ASU. But really, at the end of the day, you need somebody that can speak for the sport that isn't on a sideline. You really need somebody that people can hate or love at times. You need your own Roger Goodell that a lot of people are going to smear a lot of the times, but maybe also can see connections with or see the same side of things. But I think it would be great to get that voice that can basically work with all the schools, try to be a mediator with the players and stuff as well. I know this would seem like one person would have so much power, but at the end of the day, the commissioner works for the schools and everyone. It's really not some type of dictatorship that I think a lot of people look at it as. I would think that a good person to assume this mantle would be a very prominent former head coach or somebody from the college football playoff. Just to name one candidate, as that former prominent head coach, Nick Saban would be an obvious, kind of candidate for that, I would think. I was going to say Urban Meyer, but I know he's been in some controversy recently. Maybe he can still get out of that and be viewed as somebody that could take over for this. But you get the drift. It would have to be some very prominent head coach that has a little bit of personality, has a little bit of way to mediate themselves into a situation where they can relate to players, but fans and etc. Because the other option would be the college football playoff. Somebody from there, I think a high-ranking official that can maybe speak for the sport. But also, and this is a little bit of an interesting thing for me, but I really think the college football playoff should honestly just have more governance of the FBS than the NCAA. I say that because all we do is hear from the playoff and their decisions later in the year anyways, and they already have a lot of power, so I'd rather have all the focus in one newer organization. So I would just say whatever the NCAA is doing, kind of let the playoff just take over operations for, or at least have a more prominent say. I'd like to see that organization very involved in the decision making at this point, given they are just so big into the sport. And when I say decision making, I say even rule changes, the media rights things, mediating with the players. I just say let the college football playoff do it, especially because the NCAA is already involved in so many different pockets. They've got a ton of other varsity sports they've got to be concerned about. And honestly, at this point, I think you can't even view football as nearly on the same playing field as all these other programs to where they're still considered student athletes and stuff. I think we can all identify that college football is in a different stratosphere financially and more, especially with the NIL deals available to the players. So you might as well double down on that and let the CFP really control the sport as a governing body. But that's my quick guide on how to fix college football in 2025. I truly believe a lot of these steps would go a long way into helping grow and maintain the sport back to what we all know it can be. Let me know what you agree and disagree with in the comments below. I do think we can all agree that we want to see college football get back to a stable place. The great thing about the portal and NILs, we've seen more teams draw into the mix. I think if college football can find a way to properly incentivize a little less transferring and such, we'll see such a great blend of teams and players to follow and storylines as well. This should make the game more interesting than just simply going back to how it used to be, as some people like to think. I really don't like that. I don't think it's obvious to say that everybody adored college football when it was like Alabama and Clemson every year with a potential run from Ohio State, and those were really the only teams with a chance of relevance because you had all the recruits going to these schools with no movement at all. I think if we get the proper blend of college football's current conditions, we will see a game that is better than ever. Drop some comments and a like down below if you have any thoughts. Feel free to subscribe if you like content like this. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video that will be out soon.